Back again. Sorry I haven't been on in a while, but dealing with some personal biz. It's been taking up my time. Living that house arrest life, but I still managed to get my hands on a comic book. Uh, I wanted to get this one mainly because I like Doc Ock's new design. I'm not really, we'll get into it. We'll see. So basically, they're saying that Spider-Man is struggling to run his corporation and be Spider-Man, which is understandable because he's not Stark, right? So we start off in London, and Parker's doing a TV interview, and I actually like his assistant. She's like, she doesn't let him get away with running off, but apparently she knows he's Spider-Man. Um, yeah, but whatever. She just basically tells him, no more running off in the middle of interviews. Just be Peter Parker for 20 minutes. And, of course, the lady that's interviewing him is giving him crap because sometimes the things that he does at Parker Industries are questionable, but they're always in good intention. And he gets backed up by Silver Sable, who in the last issue, they quote unquote invaded a country, but they really kind of liberated it. And the interviewer is trying to spin it around to make it look like that Peter and the corporation are there to do, the opposite. But she calls Silver Sable in during the interview, and her and Aunt May basically backed Peter up 100%. And they're like, if it wasn't for the Uncle Ben Foundation, you know, the country would be a lot worse off. And then, you get that face. But she doesn't give a shit. She's like, oh, breaking alert, we're under attack. Of course, it's aliens, but this is from, how all the heroes are up in space with Captain Marvel fighting off the Chitauri, which is, it's been going on forever now, so it's kind of getting boring to me, because they're focusing more on everything else besides this, if that makes sense. Whatever. So, the TV alert goes off, and this is what the satellite is catching somehow in space, probably with noise and everything. And Peter goes to run off, and she's like, no, sit down, you gotta finish the interview, even though it would make sense for him to run off. But so while the invasion is happening, all the other criminals are attacking New York City, because what other city are you going to attack? Of course. And they call the interview off. And they say they have to reschedule. So I like how he holds the door open for her. It's just like, even with all the crap going on, he's still a good dude. It's good to see. But he doesn't... Basically, this conversation between the two of them is, she's saying that you have to be able to do both, and she has a good line here. He's like, how did Stark ever do it? And she's like, by drinking and with an artificial heart. I thought it was funny. But she basically gets a text from her ex saying they have to meet urgently, which you find out who it is later. And he is like, I didn't even know you were dating someone, and then broke up with them. And she's like, well, we could work on being friends later, because you're pretty shitty at it. But you're doing good. She's basically saying he did good not running away from the interview. So I'm not really sure if they... Yeah, it says that they're in New York. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. So he runs off to the building that's in London. Or I guess New York. Because it's weird, because over here it says where they are, but then they have some dialogue, and I guess it's assumed that they went back to New York, but they don't say it. And so, more evidence that Peter really looks up to Stark, obviously, but this new costume he has, I approve of it. It's cool. And it just kind of goes on, like the symbiote. And he basically says he's doing a security sweep, and it's weird because none of the people he sees who work there are usually there. And then you get this dude with his weird-ass face basically saying that they're on to them. And big shocker here, because like the only villains that could be in Marvel right now are Nazis, and so all the people in his office are Hydra, and you get the cool double page spread. Well, not, it's like half a, you know what I mean. And they're swarming him, but he's just kind of making jokes, and he says, the day I can't handle a bunch of Hydra goons, and then he's like, actually, that day's never gonna happen. And this isn't really the right sound, but basically someone is, you know, like, about to talk to them over the intercom, so it stops everybody. And the voice from the intercom says, stop attacking him and let him through because his business is with me. And you still don't know who it is, but obviously from the cover, we all know who it is. And this is obviously after the whole thing, the Superior Spider-Man arc, because if you haven't read it, basically Peter and Doc Ock swap bodies and like a bunch of shit happens, but he says he could kind of recognize the voice, which I find a bit odd, because you find out that it's Doc Ock in a clone body. He even cracks a joke. He's like, I'm not surprised you came back from the dead, because literally everyone does. But I like this design, I like this suit, and I kind of find it funny that they're doing what everyone on YouTube is saying should be done with Riri Williams to Doc Ock. And he basically asks him what he's doing here, and he tries to say, you know, I was in your body, you were in mine. We know each other extremely well at this point. And so they're giving each other ultimatums, basically. And Peter says, if you stop, you know, we'll try and figure something out so I can help you. And he just cuts him off. And he tells him that he's giving him a chance because he's, you know, he's been in his head. He knows his family, his friends, and vice versa. And so he basically says his ultimatum, Doc Ock's, is you got to turn the company over to me. Which he actually brings up a valid argument, because he says while he was in Peter's body, he's the one who started Parker Industries. He's the one who came up with most of the stuff they use. Peter's argument is webware is their signature product, and he came up with that. And Doc Ock laughs it off and says, no, that's what we used to communicate in the Spider-Verse thing. You basically copied it. And so that catches Peter off guard. And he basically says he needs him to answer now, or it's going to get ugly. And Peter says no. And so he puts this bubble of Ebon energy around Manhattan, and he spins it around so on the news they're blaming it on something that went wrong in Parker Industries Tower, and it's completely covering Manhattan. I like this line, lies and poppycock. That's totally something Doc Ock would say. But, you know, he says that he knows it's bullshit, but it's effective. And so Peter attacks him, and he just hits him, or throws him, I guess. Ock taunts him, and then he does what he always does and goes for the eyes, which is cool because Doc Ock's, like, spider suit, I guess you could call it, it just, like, melts the webs off, because he knows that's what he's going to do. And he's basically saying that while he's fighting him, that I know your moves, I know your tricks. You can't trick me anymore. Which, you don't have a good fight unless someone gets smashed with a piping hot thing of coffee. Like in Pineapple Express. But he grabs two, smashes him over Ock's head, and he's about to go in for the finishing blow, and he gets a message from Tony Stark saying that all Avengers are immediately needed to DC, which he knew was going to happen, I guess. And so he basically says, are you going to stay here and deal with me, or are you going to go help your friends who actually need you? And then, this is the part I had an issue with. It just cuts to him basically just running away. And I thought a little bit of maybe dialogue would be better in between this shot to establish, like, that Peter is struggling with the decision. It's like he didn't even think. He just was like, you know what, screw it. There's this, my arch enemy in my office, in my body, or a clone of it, trying to take my company, and he just books it. So, and you'll see why that's a mistake in a minute. So, we get this shot of, that's Doc Ock in Peter's body. Of course, he has the hipster haircut, and he blows up the building, which I'm sure we'll get a good explanation for that in the next issue, but it's not really clear what his intentions are, because he wanted the business, or the corporation, he got Peter to leave, so basically he could have just taken it over from there, but he doesn't. He just blows it up and walks away in his hipster trench coat. So, Peter's assistant got stood up, and you find out that her date was with Doc Ock in his new Peter Parker hipster body. But, the building blows up. She's apparently just like standing in the street nearby, I guess. He pays for the bill, because he's like, I stood her up, so here's the money for her bill. Which I guess is kind of like showing that, like Peter said, there's still good in Doc. But obviously not as much as evil. And he's saying that basically everything's going according to his plan, but, it's obviously unclear what his plan is so far. And then you get this shot of, I don't know why they brought this thing back. One thing that in the 90s, Peter had like a spider car, and they got rid of it for good reasons, because he doesn't fucking need it. But the next issue is more of this new Doc Ock design, which is what made me get the issue. I really love this design for him, even though the writing isn't all there, but, what can you do? With the current writers and editors and all that bullshit going on at Marvel, you can't really expect them to pop out really great content like they used to. But that's the issue. Would I recommend it? Sure, why not? It's only $4, and it's interesting to just see the artwork. I forgot to mention, it's like, it kind of looks like they, I always forget what it's called, when you just like take an image and then trace over it. The whole comic almost looks like that, but there are some shots that, like the fight scene is drawn really well. I enjoyed that. So, at least there's that much. But, overall I'd say, if you're a Spider-Man fan and you think that this Dr. Octopus design is appealing to you, go pick it up. No shame in doing it. It's better than picking up America or Riri or Miss Marvel or all that other shit that they're shoving down our throats at this point. I don't know how new this issue is, because again, I'm not allowed to leave the house. But if the next one is out, I'll get right on it. Alright, trying to keep it short, so have a good night, everybody.